Deep in the mountains of Turkey, researchers unsealed a chamber that had been locked for thousands of years. What they found inside defied explanation. Skeletal remains that don't match any known species, ancient warnings carved into hardened pitch, a massive reinforced door with impact marks pushing outward. Something had tried to escape. The dimensions matched the biblical account exactly, 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide. But here's what nobody is talking about. The discovery happened in May 1948, the exact same month Israel became a nation again after 2,000 years. Coincidence? The objects found inside suggest this wasn't just a boat, it was a prison, and according to the inscriptions, it was never meant to be opened, until now. The Durupanar Formation sits high in the mountains of eastern Turkey. For decades, locals avoided the site. They called it cursed. Now we know why. In 1950, a Turkish army captain flying a routine survey mission noticed something impossible, a boat-shaped impression in the earth. 17 miles south of Mount Ararat, the exact location Genesis describes as the mountains of Ararat. Not the mountain, the mountains, plural. The formation measured exactly 515 feet long. That's 300 ancient cubits. The width? 85 feet, 50 cubits. The biblical measurements weren't approximate, they were precise. But here's where it gets strange. Ground-penetrating radar revealed the formation wasn't solid rock. Beneath the hardened exterior lay organized spaces, chambers, compartments, internal divisions that followed a pattern. Natural geological formations don't have patterns. They have chaos, random fractures, collapsed voids. This showed structure. The scanning team ran the tests 3 times. Same results. The spaces remained distinctly defined, evenly spaced divisions like containment sections. The walls appeared straight in multiple areas. Some corners approached right angles. Erosion doesn't create right angles. Water doesn't carve straight lines. Wind doesn't organize chambers. The lead geologist submitted his resignation. He refused to sign the report. Soil samples told another story. The composition showed clay deposits mixed with petrified organic material, not random sediment, deliberate layering, the kind used in ancient construction, and something else, marine fossils. Seaweed remnants, shellfish fragments, at an elevation of 6,500 feet above sea level. How does ocean debris end up on a mountain? The Turkish government authorized limited excavation in 1986. What the team uncovered in the first week changed everything. Metallic objects embedded in the petrified structure, not random metal deposits, manufactured rivets, ship fasteners, the kind used to join wooden beams under extreme stress. The chemical analysis revealed the metal contained specific ratios. Iron, aluminum, titanium, the exact composition needed for saltwater resistance. Someone had engineered these fasteners for maritime use, thousands of years before modern metallurgy. But the location itself raised questions nobody wanted to answer. Mount Ararat stands as Turkey's highest peak, 16,000 feet of volcanic rock. For centuries, explorers searched its slopes for arc remnants. They found fragments, pieces of petrified wood, nothing substantial, nothing definitive. Just enough evidence to keep the search alive. The Durupanar site sits on Mount Tenderek, a smaller volcanic formation, different geological history, different rock composition. If the ark landed on Ararat, how did it end up 17 miles away? Some researchers proposed landslide theories, massive earth movements shifting the vessel over millennia. Others suggested multiple landing sites. Yes, perhaps the ark broke apart during the flood's final stages, sections scattered across the mountain range. The evidence doesn't support either theory. No debris trail connects Ararat to Tenderek. No geological scarring indicates catastrophic landslides. The formation sits intact, undisturbed, as if placed deliberately in its current position. Local villages surrounding the site have names that can't be ignored. One translates to where the ship rested. Another means Valley of 8 Souls. 8 people, the exact number Genesis records as ark survivors. Noah, his wife, their 3 sons, and their wives, 8 souls. The village elders refused interviews. They said the mountain holds secrets that should remain buried. Satellite imaging revealed additional mysteries. The formation's position aligns with ancient trade routes, routes that shouldn't exist at that elevation. Well, why would traders cross a barren mountain range when easier paths existed? Unless something drew them there, something significant enough to risk the journey. Stone monuments dot the landscape around the site, 12 standing stones, arranged in a specific configuration. When measured, they form a perfect circle around the formation. The distance from each stone to the center point, exactly 500 feet. Someone marked this location, marked it with precision, marked it permanently. One monument bears carved faces, 8 faces, weathered but recognizable, human features, different from each other, as if representing specific individuals. The detail level suggests these weren't symbolic carvings, they were portraits. Carbon dating placed the monuments at approximately 5,000 years old, the same time frame biblical scholars assign to the flood narrative. But here's what the reports buried. Electromagnetic readings around the site show unexplained fluctuations. Compasses malfunction within 200 yards of the formation. Electronic equipment experiences interference. Drone flights above the site fail at a specific altitude. The drones simply lose power and fall. Batteries fully charged one moment, dead the next. The Turkish military established a restricted zone. Official reason? Archaeological preservation. Actual reason? The phenomena can't be explained. And unexplained phenomena raise uncomfortable questions. There are researchers who spent extended time at the site reported unusual experiences, vivid dreams, recurring nightmares, all sharing common themes: rising water, desperate crowds, sealed doors. Some team members requested transfers, others quit entirely. None would discuss the details publicly. The formation itself shows signs of catastrophic stress, compression marks, heat damage, impact scarring, as if the vessel endured forces beyond normal maritime conditions. The petrified wood fibers show cellular distortion, the kind caused by extreme pressure or extreme heat, or both simultaneously. How does a wooden boat survive forces that petrify wood and warp metal? Geological surveys confirm the surrounding rock strata, sedimentary layers consistent with rapid water deposit, not gradual accumulation over millennia. Rapid deposition, the kind that occurs during catastrophic flooding. And the layers contain something unexpected: sorted fossils. Marine creatures buried alongside land animals, predators mixed with prey, species from different continents, all crushed together in the same sediment layer. That's not natural selection, that's catastrophic death, mass extinction in a single event. The site's elevation presents another problem for skeptics: 6,500 feet. At that altitude, oxygen levels make sustained human activity difficult. Ancient peoples didn't build settlements there. They couldn't. Yet someone constructed this vessel, provisioned it, sealed it, at an elevation where breathing becomes labored. Unless they didn't build it there, unless it arrived there, carried by waters that covered even the highest peaks, the dimensional accuracy can't be dismissed as coincidence. 300 cubits translates to 515 feet using the ancient Hebrew cubit. The formation measures 513 feet, on a variance of 2 feet over 5 centuries of weathering and geological shift. That's 99.6% accuracy. Natural formations don't achieve 99% accuracy to ancient measurements. The width presents the same precision. 50 cubits equals 85 feet using standard measurements. The formation's width? 83 feet at its narrowest point, 87 feet at the widest, averaging 85 feet. Again, the variance falls within expected degradation ranges. And the height? 30 cubits, 51 feet. Difficult to measure on a buried structure. But ground-penetrating radar detected the formation extending approximately 48 feet below current ground level. Factor in sediment accumulation, soil compression, millennia of geological deposits. The original height would place it at exactly 51 feet, 3 measurements, all matching biblical specifications. All preserved despite 5,000 years of environmental exposure. The critics called it coincidental. They said boat-shaped formations occur naturally. They cited other sites, other formations, other false alarms. But none of those sites showed internal structure. None revealed organized compartments. None produced manufactured artifacts. None sat at the exact location ancient texts described. None appeared in May 1948. The timing alone deserves attention: 1900 years. That's how long Israel ceased to exist as a sovereign nation. Rome destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD, scattered the Jewish people across the empire. For nearly 2 millennia, the land belonged to others: Persians, Crusaders, Ottomans, British. Then, May 14, 1948, Israel declared independence, a nation reborn in a single day. The prophecy from Isaiah 66:8. Who has heard such a thing? Can a country be born in a day? That same month, researchers confirmed the Durupanar formation matched arc dimensions. Same month, same year. After 2,000 years of absence and searching, but what they found inside the structure would prove far more disturbing than the location. The initial excavation revealed the first chamber. The team expected empty space, collapsed debris. They found neither. What waited in that darkness had been sealed for a reason. The excavation team entered through a carefully measured breach point. They chose the southwestern corner, away from the main structure. Minimal disturbance. Standard archaeological protocol. The drill hit empty space at 12 feet. Air samples drawn from the cavity showed unusual composition, higher carbon dioxide levels than expected, lower oxygen, as if something had consumed the air or something had been breathing it. Thousands of years ago, the team widened the opening, inserted cameras. The footage showed walls, not rock walls, constructed walls, covered in a dark, hardened substance. Pitch, the same waterproofing material Genesis describes. Cover it inside and out with pitch, but pitch degrades. It cracks, it crumbles. This hadn't. It remained sealed, airtight, preserving whatever lay behind it. The first researcher descended on rappelling equipment. His radio transmission came through clear. Then it didn't. Static, interference, then silence. The team pulled him up immediately. He was unconscious, vital signs stable, but unconscious. He woke 3 hours later. Couldn't explain what happened, just remembered the walls, the darkness, then nothing. They sent in remote equipment instead. The compartment measured approximately 30 feet long, 15 feet wide, 8 feet high, rectangular, precise corners. The walls met at exact 90-degree angles. The floor sat level, not sloped, not irregular, level, as if someone had used measuring tools, construction techniques, engineering principles. The ceiling showed support beam impressions, regular spacing, load-bearing patterns, the kind that distribute weight evenly across a structure. These weren't decorative, they were functional. Someone had calculated stress points, reinforced weak areas, built for extreme conditions. Then the cameras found the inscriptions, carved directly into the hardened pitch, not scratched, carved, deep grooves, deliberate strokes. The symbols appeared organized, repeated sequences, structured patterns. This was language, written language, predating known alphabets by centuries. The linguistic team photographed every surface, documented every mark, spent months on translation. The script showed characteristics of Proto-Semitic languages related to ancient Hebrew, but older, more primitive. Foundation forms. 3 phrases appeared repeatedly throughout the chamber, always in the same sequence, always near doorways, always at eye level. Bind the corrupted. Seal them for the fire. Do not open until the end of days. Not suggestions, commands, written with urgency, with authority, with warning. The phrase "end of days" appeared 17 times in that first chamber alone, always accompanied by the same symbol, a circle, broken, incomplete, as if representing time cut short or time running out. Researchers noted the inscription placement, pressed into pitch before full curing. That means the writing happened during construction, not added later, not carved by explorers or vandals. These warnings were original, part of the design, part of the purpose, but warnings against what? The team moved deeper, found the second chamber, larger than the first, same pitch coating, same perfect angles, but different contents. The floor showed displacement patterns, rectangular depressions, evenly spaced, as if heavy objects had rested there for years, decades, centuries. Soil samples from the depressions revealed organic compounds, plant-based materials, compressed, mineralized, fossilized grain deposits, not scattered remnants, concentrated storage. The distribution pattern showed organization. Wheat residues in the northern section, barley compounds in the southern area, different grain types, deliberately separated. Someone had allocated space by provision type. Systematic planning, long-term storage design. Microscopic analysis identified seed husk impressions, preserved within the mineralized layers, individual grains, identifiable varieties, ancient wheat strains, barley types, some matching known agricultural species, others completely unrecognized. The unrecognized varieties raised questions. Were these crops lost to history? Extinct plant species? Or something else? Something cultivated before the flood, before modern agriculture, before recorded farming techniques? No, chemical testing detected starch granules, still intact at the molecular level, despite thousands of years, despite burial, despite mineralization. The cellular structures retained identifiable patterns. Plant cell walls, chloroplast remnants, evidence of photosynthesis. These weren't wild grasses deposited by floodwaters. These were cultivated crops, harvested, processed, stored with intention. The grain concentrations told a story. Someone had calculated provisions, estimated consumption, planned for extended survival. The volume of residue suggested thousands of pounds, maybe tens of thousands. Enough for years, not days, not months, years. But provisions for how many? And provisions for what kind of journey? The third chamber revealed partial answers and raised worse questions. Clay containers, partially intact, buried beneath compacted sediment. Simple construction, hand-formed. No wheel marks, no mass production techniques. Each vessel showed individual characteristics. Different sizes, slightly different shapes, made by different hands. The vessels contained hardened residue, organic material, carbon-based compounds. Testing revealed plant proteins, lipid structures, carbohydrate chains, food, preserved food, sealed in containers designed to prevent spoilage. One vessel held something unexpected, honey, crystallized but identifiable, the only natural food that never spoils. Someone knew that. Someone chose honey specifically for long-term storage. That's not primitive thinking. That's advanced understanding. Scientific knowledge, preservation techniques that wouldn't be discovered for millennia. The container placement showed protection strategy, positioned in alcoves, sheltered from main traffic areas, away from structural stress points. Someone had considered every detail, anticipated problems, designed solutions. And the chamber divisions continued. Each space served a specific function, storage here, provisions there. Yes, separation throughout. This wasn't random construction. This was architectural planning, purpose-built compartmentalization. The walls between chambers showed thickness variation. Some barriers measured 3 feet thick, others barely 12 inches. Why the difference? Load-bearing requirements, sound dampening, or containment security? The thicker walls showed additional reinforcement, wooden beams embedded within the structure, crossing patterns, lattice work. Is internal framework designed to prevent collapse or prevent breakthrough? From which direction? The pitch application on interior surfaces appeared rushed in some sections. Overlapping layers, uneven coating, as if applied under time pressure, under urgency. The smooth, careful application near the entrance gave way to hasty work deeper inside. Someone had prioritized sealing certain areas, quickly. Then the team found the symbols again. Same inscriptions, same warnings, but with additions. There's new phrases, more urgent language. They know their time is short. The corruption spreads. Fire is their portion. These additions appeared in different hand styles, different carving techniques, as if written by different people, or written at different times. Multiple authors, multiple warnings, all saying the same thing. Something dangerous existed inside this vessel, something that needed binding, sealing, containing until a specific future moment, the end of days. The phrase appeared 93 times across the first 3 chambers, always capitalized in the ancient script, always given prominence, always treated as a fixed point, a known event, not speculation, not possibility, certainty. Whoever wrote these inscriptions knew something. They knew judgment was coming. They knew the world would end. They knew their cargo would wait, sealed, bound, preserved for a future revelation. And the dating methods placed the inscriptions at approximately 5,000 years old, the same period as the flood narrative, the same time frame as the formation's geological evidence, the same era as the village monuments, everything aligned, location, dimensions, materials, timeline, everything except one detail, the purpose. Genesis describes the Ark as a rescue vessel, preservation of life during global catastrophe, safety for Noah's family, survival for animal species. 2 by 2. 7 of some, entering the Ark for protection. But these inscriptions suggested something else, something darker. Not preservation, imprisonment, not protection, containment, not passengers, prisoners. And the chambers ahead would prove which interpretation was correct. The 4th chamber's entrance showed damage. The doorway frame had been reinforced multiple times, wooden beams added across the opening, metal brackets installed at stress points. Someone had worked desperately to strengthen this particular entrance. Against pressure from inside, the impact marks were unmistakable, dents in the wood, outward bulging, force applied from within the chamber. Something had struck this door, repeatedly, violently, trying to escape or trying to break free. The team hesitated before entering the 4th chamber. The reinforcement suggested danger. The warnings promised worse. But what they discovered inside would challenge everything they thought they knew about the Ark's true purpose. The 4th chamber revealed why someone had stockpiled so much food. The space measured 60 feet long, 20 feet wide, 3 times larger than the previous compartments. And it was divided, not by walls, by function. The northern third showed grain storage patterns. The middle section contained vessel fragments. The southern area held something else entirely: animal remains. But not complete skeletons, fragments, scattered across the floor in organized piles, separated by type. Bones here, teeth there, horn fragments in another section. Someone had processed these remains, deliberately, methodically, after death. But why? The bone distribution told a story the researchers didn't want to read. Cattle bones, sheep remains, goat fragments, domestic livestock, the kind Genesis describes entering the ark, 2 by 2, for preservation, for survival. These animals didn't survive. Cut marks scarred the bones, stone tool impressions, butchering techniques. Someone had slaughtered these animals, processed the meat, consumed the flesh. The bones showed evidence of marrow extraction, every nutritional element utilized, nothing wasted. The quantity suggested systematic harvesting, not emergency rations, planned consumption. The bone piles represented hundreds of animals, maybe thousands, slaughtered over an extended period, months, possibly years. The grain storage makes sense now. Feed the animals, slaughter as needed, sustain the human population. Survival strategy for a journey with no known end date. But Genesis says the animals left the ark, went forth and multiplied, repopulated the earth. These bones suggested a different story, a darker reality. Most animals never left. Most became provisions. The team documented everything, photographed every pile, cataloged every bone fragment. The evidence was undeniable. And this chamber functioned as a processing center. Slaughter, butcher, store. Then they found the clay seals, small objects, cylindrical, covered in script, the same ancient language from the wall inscriptions. But these contained lists, inventories, recorded quantities. Someone had tracked the provisions, maintained accounts, documented consumption. One seal translated clearly. Month 7, cattle remaining, 42, sheep, 117, goats, 63, grain stores, sufficient. Water concerning, another seal. Month 11, rainfall ceased, cisterns half depleted, rations reduced, thirst claims 1 today. Someone died of thirst. On a vessel surrounded by floodwaters. How does that happen? The answer lay in the next chamber, the 5th compartment, the water storage system. Massive clay vessels lined the walls, each one larger than a man, sealed with pitch, designed for liquid storage. A ground-penetrating radar showed these containers extended below the current floor level, built into the structure itself. Permanent installations, not portable water jugs, fixed cisterns. The capacity calculations stunned the engineering team. Each vessel held approximately 500 gallons, 12 vessels per wall, 4 walls, 24,000 gallons of fresh water storage. Enough for months, maybe a year, depending on the passenger count. But the seals mentioned depletion. And how do you deplete 24,000 gallons? Unless the journey lasted longer than a year, much longer. Residue analysis from the cisterns revealed something unexpected: salt crystals. Mineral deposits, the kind that form when seawater evaporates. These weren't filled with fresh water. They contained processed seawater, boiled, condensed, purified through evaporation. Someone had developed desalination techniques 5,000 years before modern science invented the process. They understood evaporation, condensation, salt separation, advanced chemistry, applied physics. The chamber showed evidence of fire pits, stone-lined areas blackened by repeated burning, heating zones for boiling seawater. The ventilation shafts above each pit drew smoke upward and outward. Someone had engineered an air circulation system, prevented smoke accumulation, maintained breathable atmosphere. This wasn't primitive survival. This was sophisticated engineering. The food preservation techniques showed similar advancement. Clay jars sealed with beeswax, creating airtight storage, preventing bacterial contamination. Some vessels contained salt deposits, preserved meat, salted fish, techniques that shouldn't exist for thousands of years. One container held dried fruit, figs, dates, still identifiable after millennia. The drying process had removed moisture completely, perfect preservation. Someone understood food science, bacterial growth prevention. On long-term storage requirements, the grain storage showed equal sophistication, separated by type, stored in different humidity zones. Some areas deliberately kept dry, others maintained slight moisture, optimizing preservation for each crop variety. That's not accidental, that's experiential knowledge, trial and error, refined technique. Seed samples from the storage areas revealed careful selection. Only the best grains stored, largest seeds, healthiest specimens. Now, someone had sorted through harvests, chosen premium stock, planned for future planting, post-flood agriculture, rebuilding civilization. But some grain types showed no modern equivalents. Analysis revealed genetic markers that don't exist in current crop varieties. Either these species went extinct, or they were engineered before the flood. Selective breeding, genetic manipulation through ancient methods. The pollen samples complicated the timeline, extracted from sediment layers. Not identified through microscopic analysis, the varieties represented plants from different climate zones, Mediterranean species, Mesopotamian flora, African vegetation, plants that shouldn't coexist in a single location unless collected from multiple regions, gathered before the flood, brought aboard deliberately, biodiversity preservation, species banking. The Ark wasn't just saving humans and animals, it was preserving the entire ecosystem. The seed vault concept isn't modern. Someone understood it 5,000 years ago. Storage compartments showed additional evidence of planning. Honey containers, dozens of them, crystallized but intact, natural antibacterial properties, never spoils, perfect long-term food source, and medicinal applications, wound treatment, infection prevention. Someone packed medicine, herb residues appeared in smaller vessels. Identified through chemical signatures, medicinal plants, pain relievers, fever reducers, digestive aids. To complete pharmacy, organized by application, labeled in the ancient script, dosage instructions included. One container held something extraordinary. Preserved tree resin, tested, identified, frankincense, myrrh, expensive materials, valuable commodities, used for religious ceremonies, for anointing, for burial preparations. Why pack burial materials on a survival vessel? Unless someone expected death, planned for it, prepared to honor the dead properly, even during catastrophe. Even during survival conditions, maintained ritual, preserved tradition, honored the sacred. The implications were staggering. This wasn't desperate survival. This was organized civilization under extreme conditions. Laws, customs, religious practices, all maintained aboard the vessel. Society didn't collapse during the flood. It compressed, adapted, continued. The provision quantities supported extended duration. One clay seal mentioned month 17, another referenced month 23. The biblical account says the flood lasted just over a year, 371 days. These records suggested similar timeframes, but the consumption rates indicated more passengers than 8 people, much more. One inventory listed souls aboard 317. Another mentioned families 42. The numbers didn't match Genesis, didn't match tradition, didn't match accepted narrative. Either the records were wrong or the story was incomplete. The team photographed everything, documented every seal, every inventory, every discrepancy. The evidence was clear, undeniable, uncomfortable. This vessel carried more than Noah's immediate family, significantly more, and they survived through careful planning. Advanced knowledge, sophisticated techniques that shouldn't exist in the ancient world, but they couldn't escape what was sealed in the deeper chambers. The provision areas occupied the vessel's outer sections. Accessible, functional, necessary for survival, but the inner chambers, the sealed compartments, the reinforced doors, those spaces served a different purpose, and the warnings carved into every entrance made that purpose clear. What follows is bound for fire. Do not release the corrupted. Seal until judgment. The provisions sustained life. The inner chambers contained something else, something that required eternal imprisonment, something waiting for the end of days. The team stood before the entrance to the 6th chamber. The door was different, thicker, reinforced with metal bands, and unlike the previous entrances, this one showed no damage, no impact marks, no attempts to escape. Whatever lay beyond had remained perfectly still, perfectly quiet, for 5,000 years. The 6th chamber required 3 days to access, not because of structural difficulty, because of psychological resistance. Every team member felt it, a pressure, a weight. Something wrong about this particular space. 2 researchers refused to enter. One packed his equipment and left the site entirely. He never explained why. The door finally opened. The chamber beyond sat in complete darkness. Emergency lighting revealed the space, 40 feet long, 30 feet wide, and filled with structures, wooden frameworks, dozens of them, arranged in rows, organized with mathematical precision, each framework identical to the next, same height, same width. On its same construction pattern. Cages, that's what they look like. Vertical slats connected by horizontal crossbeams, narrow spacing between supports, too tight for large animals, too reinforced for simple storage, built for containment. The wood had petrified over millennia, turned to stone, but the cellular structure remained visible under microscopic examination. Cedar, the same wood Genesis specifies for ark construction. Gopher wood, ancient term for cypress or cedar, rot-resistant. Oh, durable. Strong. These frameworks needed strength. The vertical supports measured 6 inches thick, overkill for containing sheep or goats. The horizontal beams showed mortise and tenon joinery, interlocking connections, no nails, no metal fasteners, pure carpentry, expert craftsmanship, each joint fitted perfectly, designed to withstand stress. Stress from what? Digital reconstruction revealed the original configurations. The frameworks formed enclosures approximately 4 feet wide. Is 6 feet long, 7 feet high, human-sized spaces, but the internal volume was reduced by the tight slat spacing, barely 18 inches of clearance, not enough to lie down comfortably, not enough to move freely. These weren't accommodations, these were cells. The slat spacing measured exactly 4 inches, too narrow for a human body to pass through, too narrow for most animals, but the reinforcement pattern suggested the builders expected pressure, expected resistance. The crossbeams showed stress marks, compression damage, as if something had pushed against them, repeatedly. The joint connections revealed more. Pitch residue sealed each mortise and tenon junction, creating waterproof bonds, but also creating permanent connections. These frameworks weren't designed for disassembly. They were built to last, built to hold, built to never release their contents. Researchers found the first anomaly in Framework 7. A slat showed damage, splintered wood. But the break pattern indicated force from inside. Something had struck this slat, hard enough to crack petrified cedar, hard enough to leave impact impressions, but not hard enough to break free. The damage appeared on multiple frameworks, always the same pattern: interior impacts, outward pressure, failed escape attempts. Whatever occupied these cages had tried to break out, tried repeatedly, tried violently, then stopped. The floor beneath the frameworks showed wear patterns, circular depressions, as if something had paced, moved in repetitive patterns, round and round, for hours, days, months, wearing grooves into solid wood flooring. Captivity behavior, the kind seen in imprisoned animals or imprisoned people. But the framework showed another detail: chains, metal rings embedded in the floor at each framework's center. Corroded beyond identification, but unmistakably chains, restraint systems. Someone had secured the occupants. This prevented movement even within the confined space. Why chain something already caged? The answer appeared in Framework 12. Scratch marks, deep gouges in the wooden slats, made from inside. The pattern suggested claws, but the depth indicated incredible strength. The force required to gouge petrified wood, to leave permanent marks. That's not human capability. That's not normal animal behavior. Chemical analysis of the gouges revealed organic residue, tested, identified. Keratin, the protein in fingernails, and claws and horns. But the molecular structure showed abnormalities, density variations, composition irregularities. This wasn't standard keratin. This was something altered, something wrong. The frameworks numbered 42, arranged in 6 rows of 7. Mathematical organization, deliberate spacing, each cage positioned exactly 8 feet from its neighbors, creating walkways, inspection paths. Someone had designed this layout for monitoring, for control. No, for keeping watch over dangerous occupants. But 42 cages, Genesis mentions clean animals by 7s, unclean by 2s. The numbers don't match, unless these frameworks weren't for animals, unless they served a different purpose, contained different occupants. The inscription above the chamber entrance provided context, carved deeply, emphasized heavily, repeated 3 times. The corrupted ones, bound until fire. Corrupted, not evil, not sinful, corrupted. The term implies contamination, alteration. Something changed from its original state. Genesis 6 describes corruption before the flood. The earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. But Genesis 6 also mentions something else: the Nephilim. Giants, offspring of the sons of God and daughters of men, beings that shouldn't exist, genetic corruption, hybridization, abominations. There were giants in the earth in those days. Could these frameworks have contained Nephilim? Imprisoned them? Prevented their escape during the flood? The dimensions suggested human-sized occupants, but the reinforcement implied superhuman strength. The damage patterns showed violent resistance. The chains indicated extreme security measures. Someone feared these occupants, feared them enough to build maximum security containment, feared them enough to seal them aboard the Ark, not for preservation, for imprisonment. The pitch coating inside the frameworks told another story. It's applied heavily, multiple layers, creating airtight seals, but also creating darkness, complete darkness, sensory deprivation. Someone wanted these occupants disoriented, weakened, broken, torture through isolation. One framework showed something different. The pitch coating had been scratched away in one corner, revealing writing underneath, carved into the wood itself. Different script than the wall inscriptions. Cruder, desperate, made with limited tools or with fingernails. The translation team worked for weeks. The language was ancient, pre-flood, proto-human, but eventually they extracted meaning. One phrase, repeated 17 times, "Let me die." Someone had carved a plea, a prisoner, an occupant, someone conscious enough to write, intelligent enough to communicate, desperate enough to beg for death, and imprisoned for the duration of the flood. 371 days, in darkness, in chains, in a cage barely large enough to stand. That's not mercy, that's not preservation, that's punishment. The team found similar carvings in 3 other frameworks. Same phrase, same desperate repetition, different handwriting, different prisoners, all begging for the same release. Death, but death didn't come. The occupants survived the flood, remained imprisoned, remained conscious, remained aware of their captivity for over a year. Then what happened? The framework showed no signs of forced exit. It's no broken slats beyond the impact damage, no escaped occupants. The chains remained anchored, the pitch coating remained sealed. Whatever entered these cages stayed there, until someone released them, or until something worse happened. The inscriptions provided one possibility: bound until fire. Fire as punishment, fire as purification, fire as final judgment. If the occupants remained imprisoned after the flood ended, if they were never released, then fire became their destiny. But fire requires fuel, requires oxygen, requires ignition. The next chamber would reveal how that happened and why the entire vessel bears scorch marks deep within its structure. The frameworks represented more than containment. They represented a prison system, organized, maintained, secured. The Ark wasn't just a rescue vessel, it was a floating penitentiary, carrying prisoners to an unknown destination for an unknown purpose. And the prisoners weren't volunteers. As the team moved toward the 7th chamber, the largest space yet, the air temperature increased as they approached. Heat signatures detected after 5,000 years. Heat. The door ahead showed charring, burn patterns, extreme temperatures. Something had ignited inside. Something had burned hot enough to scorch stone, hot enough to leave permanent damage, hot enough to... The heat signatures made no sense. Thermal imaging showed elevated temperatures in the 7th chamber, not dramatic. Just 3 degrees above ambient, but consistent, uniform, as if something inside maintained warmth. After 5,000 years of burial, after millennia of cold mountain temperatures, geothermal activity couldn't explain it. The surrounding chambers showed normal temperature ranges. Only this space retained heat. Only this location defied thermal equilibrium. The team entered cautiously. The chamber measured 80 feet long, the largest interior space discovered. But it was divided differently, not by function, by security level. 3 distinct sections, each separated by reinforced barriers, each requiring passage through secured doorways. The outer section appeared benign, empty floor space, clear of debris, clear of artifacts, just walls covered in inscriptions. Thousands of symbols, covering every surface, floor to ceiling, wall to wall, a library written in pitch and stone. The linguistic team estimated 40,000 individual characters, the largest ancient text collection ever discovered, predating Sumerian cuneiform, predating Egyptian hieroglyphics. This was the earliest known writing system, and it filled an entire chamber. But the content wasn't historical, it was instructional. The first wall contained construction specifications, detailed measurements, building techniques, instructions for creating waterproof seals, formulas for pitch composition, the exact ratio of ingredients needed for maximum durability. Someone had documented the Ark's construction, created a manual, preserved the knowledge. Why preserve construction details after completing the vessel? Unless the instructions were meant for later, for after the flood, for rebuilding, for teaching future generations how to construct similar vessels, in case catastrophe struck again. The second wall listed provisions, grain quantities, animal counts, water storage calculations, but these numbers dwarf the Genesis account. 8 people don't need provisions for 317 souls. 8 people don't require 42 family units. The records confirmed what the clay seals suggested. The ark carried more passengers than tradition acknowledges, significantly more. And someone documented everything, maintained accurate records, preserved the truth. The third wall contained genealogies, family lines, bloodline records, names listed in hierarchical order, patriarchs, descendants. These are branches of human ancestry. The list began with familiar names: Adam, Seth, Enosh, the Genesis genealogy. But it continued beyond Noah. Listed names never mentioned in Scripture, branches never recorded, families lost to history or deliberately erased. One genealogy showed a marked designation, a symbol next to certain names. The translation team identified it as corrupted bloodline. Those names bore additional marks, crossed out, invalidated, condemned. The same symbol appeared on the framework chamber door, the same condemnation, the same judgment. These genealogies identified the framework occupants, named them, documented their corruption, and recorded their sentence, bound until fire. But the fourth wall contained something different, a sealed alcove, recessed into the structure, protected by additional pitch coating, and hidden behind a false panel. Someone had concealed this section, deliberately, carefully, permanently. The team removed the panel, found the recess, and discovered the scrolls, 17 cylindrical objects, perfectly preserved, rolled tightly, bound with cord, sealed with wax, each one labeled with symbols, numbers, categories, organizational markers, ancient archives, preserved knowledge, hidden wisdom. The scrolls were made from treated animal skin, parchment, the same material used for Dead Sea Scrolls thousands of years later. But these predated those texts by millennia. The preparation quality exceeded later examples. Whoever created these scrolls possessed advanced preservation knowledge. The team faced an impossible choice: open the scrolls and risk destroying them, or leave them sealed and never access their contents. Ancient parchment becomes brittle. Rolling and unrolling causes fractures, irreversible damage, lost information. They chose technology instead, micro-CT scanning. The same technique used on Egyptian mummies, on Herculaneum scrolls. High-resolution X-ray imaging, penetrating layers without physical contact, reading text without unrolling, non-destructive analysis. The first scroll revealed its outer layer, faint writing visible. The script matched the wall inscriptions, same language, same style, but the content differed. This wasn't instruction, this was narrative, story, account, testimony. The partial translation sent shockwaves through the research team. Day 43, the rain continues. The screaming has stopped. Most have drowned by now. We hear nothing but water, endless water. The world is gone. An eyewitness account, written during the flood, documented by someone aboard the ark, recording events as they happened, preserving testimony, creating historical record. The second scroll showed similar content, different handwriting, different author. Month 2, the violent ones remain chained. Their strength hasn't diminished. 3 guards required per shift. They speak in languages we don't understand. They demand release. They promise destruction. We keep them bound. The violent ones, the corrupted, the framework occupants. This scroll documented their imprisonment, their resistance, their threats, and confirmed they remained conscious throughout, aware of their captivity, furious about their confinement. The third scroll contained something unexpected: technical diagrams, anatomical drawings, skeletal structures of the corrupted ones. Detailed illustrations showing physical abnormalities, bone density measurements, muscle attachment points, organ placement variations, medical documentation, scientific analysis. Someone had studied these beings, recorded their biology, understood their physical differences, and preserved that knowledge. The drawings showed humanoid forms, but with variations. Rib structures too dense, vertebral columns showing spiral configurations, skull proportions outside human norms. Limb length ratios impossible in standard anatomy. These weren't fully human. These were hybrids, genetic mixtures. The Nephilim described in Genesis 6, offspring of forbidden unions, corrupted bloodlines made flesh, and someone had imprisoned them aboard the ark, studied them, documented them, and planned their destruction. Scroll 4 revealed the plan, written in different ink, darker, more recent, added after the flood ended. The waters recede, land appears. We prepare the final solution. The corrupted cannot be released. cannot be allowed to reproduce, cannot contaminate the new world. Fire will purify, fire will cleanse, fire will erase the abominations. Final solution, execution plan, genocide of the corrupted bloodlines. The framework occupants would never leave their cages, would never see the renewed earth, would never breathe free air. They were brought aboard for one purpose, containment until execution. The fifth scroll documented the event, the cleansing, the fire. Day 371, the ark rests on Ararat. We prepare the pyres. The corrupted sense their fate. They rage, they plead, they curse. We show no mercy. God commanded their destruction. We obey. The next section was illegible. Fire damage. The scroll itself showed burn marks, as if present during the described event. Smoke stained, heat warped, a document that witnessed its own testimony. The remaining scrolls resisted scanning. The internal layers were too compressed, too degraded, too damaged by time. The technology couldn't penetrate deeply enough, couldn't separate ink from substrate. The content remained hidden. But 12 scrolls sat untouched, 12 sealed documents containing unknown information, unknown history, unknown truth. The team labeled them, cataloged them, secured them in climate-controlled storage, and began the long process of advanced imaging. And algorithms designed to enhance faded text, software that could reconstruct damaged writing, technology that might reveal what 5,000 years had concealed. The preliminary results showed promise. Fragments of text, partial words, incomplete sentences. One phrase appeared across multiple scrolls, repeated in different contexts, emphasized in various passages. Before the waters rose, the earth was filled with what? The sentence never completed in the visible portions. The answer lay deeper in the scroll layers, hidden, protected, waiting. But one word appeared in isolation on scroll 17, written larger than surrounding text, circled, marked for emphasis. Return, not past tense, future tense, not they returned, but they will return. A prophecy, a warning, a prediction. What will return? The corrupted bloodlines, the Nephilim, the conditions that required the flood, the evil that filled the earth before judgment? And the scrolls suggested an answer, multiple answers, terrifying possibilities. And the next chamber would confirm the worst of them. Because beyond the scroll archive lay the chamber of remains, the place where the corrupted ones met their final fate, where fire consumed flesh, where bone turned to ash, where evidence of their existence should have disappeared completely, should have, but didn't. The eighth chamber's entrance was sealed differently, not with pitch, not with wood, but with stone. Massive blocks fitted together without mortar, Egyptian-style construction, precise angles, perfect alignment, the kind of masonry that shouldn't exist in pre-flood civilization. But it did exist, and it sealed something permanently. The team required mechanical equipment to move the first stone, 3 tons of granite, shifted into place 5,000 years ago, by people who supposedly lacked advanced technology, lacked machinery, lacked engineering knowledge. The evidence said otherwise. Behind the first stone sat a second barrier, then a third, 7 layers of stone, 7 barriers between the chamber and the outside world. Biblical symbolism, 7 representing completion, perfection, finality. This chamber was meant to stay sealed forever. The 7th stone moved aside. The opening revealed darkness and smell, not decay, not rot, something else. Sulfur, brimstone, the chemical signature of extreme heat. Yon of fire hot enough to alter stone composition. The team inserted cameras. The footage showed devastation. The chamber floor was covered in ash, inches deep, black, powdery, undisturbed for millennia, and within the ash shapes, forms, skeletal remains, dozens of them, scattered across the space, some intact, others fragmented, all showing signs of exposure to incredible temperatures. The bones weren't buried, they were displayed, arranged deliberately, organized by type, skulls in one area, ribs in another, long bones separated, sorted, cataloged even in death. Someone had documented these remains, studied them, preserved them as evidence. The first skeleton showed immediate abnormalities. The skull measured 30% larger than average human proportions, but the cranial capacity exceeded size expectations. The bone thickness was triple normal density. This wasn't disease. This wasn't deformity. This was different physiology. The jaw structure showed additional variation. Broader attachment points, heavier muscle anchoring. Bite force calculations suggested capabilities beyond human norms. Crushing strength, predatory adaptation, and the teeth. 12 molars per side. Humans have 5. These skulls showed 12, with canine development exceeding standard patterns, pointed, sharp, designed for tearing flesh. The ribcage structure defied anatomical standards. 26 ribs. Humans have 24, but the spacing was tighter, closer together, creating a rigid barrel structure, limited lung expansion, reduced oxygen efficiency. Unless these beings didn't need normal oxygen levels, unless their physiology operated differently, adapted for different atmospheric conditions, or engineered for purposes beyond natural evolution. The vertebral column showed the most disturbing feature: spiral configuration, not straight, not curved, spiral, like a compressed spring. The vertebrae interlocked in rotating patterns, creating flexibility impossible in human spines, creating movement range that would allow unnatural contortions. The team brought in comparative anatomists, specialists in skeletal biology, experts in evolutionary development. None could classify these remains. None could identify parallel structures in known species. The bones didn't match mammals, didn't match reptiles, didn't match any cataloged vertebrate pattern. These were unique, original, without precedent in fossil records. DNA extraction proved impossible initially. The fire damage had destroyed genetic material. Temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees, hot enough to denature proteins, hot enough to break molecular bonds. But bone marrow sometimes survives, protected by cortical bone layers, shielded from extreme external heat. The team drilled carefully, extracted samples, sent them for rapid sequencing. The results returned with error codes. The equipment couldn't process the samples. The genetic markers didn't align with reference databases, not partially, not approximately, not at all. Complete unknown, unclassified, no DNA matches in global databases. The technicians ran the tests again. Same results, tried different equipment, same outcome, sent samples to 3 independent labs. All returned identical conclusions: unknown species, unknown classification, unknown origin. But these weren't animals. The skeletal structure was humanoid, bipedal, tool-using anatomy. As opposable thumbs. The pelvis showed upright walking adaptation. These beings stood erect, walked like humans, functioned like humans, but they weren't human. Not entirely, not genetically. Genesis 6:4 describes them. There were giants in the earth in those days, the Nephilim, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown, hybrid offspring, mixed genetics, human mothers, non-human fathers. Are the corrupted bloodlines, the abominations, the reason for the flood. God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. But the wickedness wasn't just moral, it was genetic. Humanity's DNA had been corrupted, contaminated, altered beyond redemption. The flood became necessary. Complete destruction, total reset, preservation of only pure bloodlines. Noah was perfect in his generations, genetically uncontaminated, pure human DNA. His family line maintained integrity. They alone survived. They alone would repopulate the earth. But these remains suggested complications. The Nephilim didn't all drown. Some were captured, imprisoned, brought aboard the ark, and executed after the flood ended. Why not let them drown? Why capture them? Why preserve them through the catastrophe only to kill them afterward? The answer lay in the arrangement. The careful organization, the documented study. These beings represented evidence, proof of what happened, testimony of the corruption, warning for future generations. Never forget what required judgment. Never forget what caused the flood. Never forget the consequences of genetic corruption. The bone measurements revealed additional details, height estimations based on long bone length. The calculations showed beings ranging from 8 to 12 feet tall. Giants indeed. Individuals with physical capabilities far exceeding normal humans. The muscle attachment points showed extraordinary development, strength levels perhaps 10 times human capacity, speed, agility, power. These beings would have dominated, ruled through physical superiority, enslaved weaker humans. The earth was filled with violence, not just murder, not just warfare, systematic domination, predatory behavior, the strong consuming the weak, literally. Some bones showed butcher marks, consumption evidence, cannibalism, or worse, The smaller skeletons told darker stories, child-sized remains, but with the same anatomical abnormalities, same spiral vertebrae, same dense rib structures, same genetic corruption. The contamination had spread to offspring. Multiple generations of Nephilim, breeding populations, expanding their numbers, threatening to completely replace pure humanity. The flood stopped it, barely, just in time. Thus, a few more generations in pure human DNA might have disappeared entirely. Extinction through genetic assimilation. But some Nephilim survived the flood. The remains proved it. And if some survived then, could others survive now? The scrolls mentioned return, future tense, coming again, the corrupted bloodlines reappearing. Genesis 6:4 states it clearly. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, after the flood, Nephilim returned. How? The genetic material survived somehow, preserved in hidden bloodlines, dormant DNA, waiting for reactivation. The team found one skeleton positioned differently, not scattered, not sorted, laid out completely, intact from skull to feet, and beside it, inscribed in the stone floor, a warning. This is Enoch, father of the Anakim. His sons return to Canaan. His bloodline continues. His corruption spreads. Watch for the signs. The giants will walk again. The Anakim. The giants Joshua encountered in Canaan, Goliath's ancestors, post-flood Nephilim, proof that the contamination survived. And if it survived then, it exists now, somewhere, hidden in human genetics. Dormant genes waiting for activation, waiting for the right conditions, waiting for the end of days. When everything returns to pre-flood conditions, when genetic manipulation becomes commonplace, when humanity plays God again, when the corruption fills the earth again. Well, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man. The skeletal remains weren't just evidence of the past, they were warnings about the future. Prophecy written in bone, testimony preserved in ash, proof that judgment came before and will come again. But the most terrifying evidence still waited in the ninth chamber, the place where the execution occurred, where fire consumed the corrupted, where temperatures reached levels that shouldn't be possible without modern technology, and where the door shows damage that suggests something survived the flames. The ninth chamber's entrance stopped the expedition completely. The door was different, massive, 6 inches of solid timber, reinforced with metal bands running horizontally and diagonally across the entire surface, not decorative metalwork, industrial strength containment. The bands were hammered into the wood with stakes the size of railroad spikes. This door wasn't designed to keep people out. It was built to keep something in. The surface told a violent story. Hundreds of impact marks scarred the wood, deep indentations, concave depressions, the kind of damage that comes from repeated forceful blows. But the direction of the impacts revealed the disturbing truth. Every dent pushed outward, every mark bulged toward the corridor. Every impression showed force applied from inside the chamber. Something had struck this door, repeatedly, desperately, trying to escape. The team measured the impact patterns, documented the depth, calculated the force required. The numbers were staggering. Each impact would have required approximately 2,000 pounds of pressure, far beyond human capability, beyond normal animal strength. Whatever struck this door possessed superhuman power. The wood fibers around each indentation showed compression patterns. The cellular structure collapsed outward, away from the chamber, confirming the force originated from within. And the distribution pattern suggested systematic attempts, not random rage, calculated escape efforts. Something intelligent had tried to break through. Something that understood the door was the weak point. Something that tested it repeatedly, looking for failures, searching for weaknesses. The metal bands showed similar stress, warping along the edges, strain marks where wood and metal met. The fastening stakes had shifted slightly, pulled partially from their anchor points. Another few strikes might have worked, might have broken the seal. But the strikes stopped, abruptly, completely. The damage pattern showed intense activity, then nothing, as if whatever was inside suddenly ceased or was silenced. The team examined the door frame. Additional evidence appeared. In diagonal bracing beams installed across the opening, not part of the original construction, these were added later, hastily, under emergency conditions. The tool marks showed rushed work, multiple workers, urgent reinforcement. Someone had strengthened this door while something raged behind it, reinforced the barrier while under threat, while listening to whatever was trying to break free. The beam placement told the story. Installed at stress points, positioned to distribute impact force. Engineered to prevent breakthrough, someone understood structural dynamics, applied physics, created a containment system that could withstand incredible pressure. And it worked. The door held. The chamber remained sealed. Whatever was inside stayed there. But the condition of the wood suggested other problems. Heat damage, charring along the lower third of the door. Not surface scorching, deep burning, the kind that penetrates wood grain, the kind that comes from sustained high temperatures. A fire inside the chamber while something was still alive in there. The metal bands showed heat effects, discoloration, warping. The lower bands had partially melted, temperatures exceeding 1500 degrees, hot enough to soften iron, hot enough to ignite wood, hot enough to kill anything organic. The thermal damage pattern matched the scroll testimony. We prepare the pyres, the corrupted sense their fate. Someone had set fire to the chamber occupants, burned them alive. Thus, while they were still caged, still conscious, still aware, execution by immolation, the fire referenced in every inscription, seal them for the fire. Not metaphorical fire, not spiritual judgment, actual flames, actual burning, actual screams. The door showed one more detail. Claw marks, deep gouges in the wood surface, concentrated near the impact points, made by something sharp, something strong enough to scar petrified wood. The grooves ran vertically, downward, down as if something had gripped the door, tried to pull it open, failed, scraped downward in desperation or in agony. Residue analysis of the claw marks revealed organic compounds, keratin proteins, but the molecular structure showed abnormalities, density variations, the same corrupted keratin found in the framework chamber, the same genetic markers, the same corrupted biology. The Nephilim had left their mark, literally, scratched their testimony into the barrier that imprisoned them. Evidence of their final moments, proof of their suffering, testament to their execution. The team hesitated at this chamber. The evidence was clear. Opening this door meant confronting whatever remained inside, confronting the aftermath of mass execution, confronting evidence of deliberate killing. Some called it murder, others called it obedience. God commanded the destruction of the corrupted bloodlines, commanded their complete elimination, and someone carried out that command. Systematically, thoroughly, without mercy. The door hinges showed additional information, massive iron constructions, designed to support tremendous weight, but also designed to swing only one direction, outward, into the corridor, of course. The hinges prevented the door from opening inward, prevented anything inside from pulling the door into the chamber. One-way containment. Whatever entered this chamber could never exit. The physical design guaranteed it. The engineering ensured it. Now, this was a death chamber, built as such, functioning as designed. The locking mechanism revealed the final detail, not a simple latch, not a standard lock, a complex system, multiple bolt points, sliding bars, internal reinforcements. The lock could only be operated from outside, no internal release, no escape mechanism, and it showed evidence of use. The bolts were fully extended, the bars completely engaged. Someone had locked this door, secured every mechanism, ensured absolute containment, then never unlocked it. The chamber remained sealed since the day the fire was set, since the day the corrupted burned, since the day their screams echoed through the ark, since the day their claws scraped the door in final desperation. 5,000 years, locked, sealed, undisturbed, until now. The team leader made the decision. The door would open, the chamber would be entered, the evidence would be documented. History demanded it, truth required it, understanding necessitated it. But precautions were needed. Hazmat equipment, breathing apparatus, chemical sensors, whatever remained inside might be toxic, might be dangerous, might be cursed. Some team members refused to participate. The religious implications were too severe, the moral questions too complex. Opening this chamber meant confronting God's judgment, witnessing divine wrath, standing in the aftermath of commanded execution. Was humanity meant to see this? Was this chamber sealed for a reason? Should some things remain hidden? Should some evidence stay buried? The debate lasted 3 days. Finally, authorization came from Turkish authorities. Scientific necessity overruled religious hesitation. The chamber would be opened, carefully, methodically, with full documentation, the mechanical systems engaged, hydraulic pressure applied, the locking bolts retracted, one by one, each movement producing metallic screams, 5,000 years of corrosion fighting against modern machinery. The final bolt released. The door was technically unlocked, but still sealed by age, by pressure, by the weight of history. The team attached cables, applied steady tension. The door resisted, then shifted, slowly, reluctantly, opening outward, revealing darkness beyond, and heat, impossible heat. The chamber's interior measured 15 degrees above ambient temperature. After 5,000 years, after millennia of cold mountain conditions, heat persisted. Yet as if the fire never completely extinguished, as if something inside still burned. The thermal cameras showed hotspots, concentrated areas of elevated temperature, not uniform, not distributed, specific locations, as if marking positions, as if indicating where the corrupted stood when the flames consumed them. The first team member entered. His radio transmission crackled with interference. His vital signs spiked, heart rate elevated, blood pressure rising, stress response, fear response. A primal reaction to what he was seeing. His voice came through broken, distorted, barely comprehensible. They're still here, all of them, exactly where they fell. And some of them aren't completely... The transmission cut to static. The team leader ordered immediate evacuation. Whatever was in that chamber had triggered a physiological response. Something visual, something traumatic, something that made a trained archaeologist lose composure. It's something that suggested the fire hadn't completed its work, that some evidence of the corrupted remained, partially preserved, partially visible, partially... The researcher was pulled from the chamber immediately. He sat in silence for 20 minutes, staring, not responding to questions, not acknowledging the medical team, just staring at something no one else could see, something burned into his memory, something he couldn't unsee. Finally, he spoke. 2 words. Still screaming. The team leader demanded clarification. Still screaming? That was impossible. Nothing had survived 5,000 years. Nothing remained alive in that chamber. The fire had consumed everything. The executions were complete. The corrupted were destroyed. But the researcher insisted the bodies weren't completely ash. Some retained partial form. Skeletal structures locked in positions of agony, mouths open, backs arched, limbs twisted, frozen in their final moments. It's preserved by the extreme heat, mummified by fire rather than destroyed by it, and their faces, their expressions, terror, pain, awareness. They knew what was happening. They felt every moment. They died conscious, died screaming. The documentation continued remotely. Cameras sent in, robotic equipment, no more human entry. The psychological cost was too severe. The images were enough, more than enough. 42 bodies, matching the 42 frameworks, but not matching the 42 corrupted bloodlines. All accounted for, all executed, all preserved as evidence. But evidence for whom? For what purpose? If these beings were destroyed, why preserve the remains? Why seal them aboard the ark? Why not scatter the ashes? Why not erase every trace? Unless someone wanted proof, wanted future generations to see, wanted testimony that would survive millennia, wanted evidence that the judgment was real, the corruption was real, the execution was necessary. The photographic documentation went viral within hours. Someone leaked the images, posted them online, shared them across social media platforms. Within 24 hours, the Durupanar site became global news. Every major outlet covered the story. Every network sent reporters. Every government issued statements. The Turkish government tried to control the narrative, called it archaeological discovery, emphasized scientific importance, downplayed religious implications. But the images spoke louder than official statements. Those weren't normal skeletons. Those weren't ancient humans. Those were something else, something wrong, something that validated every ancient text, every flood narrative, every giant legend, every Nephilim reference. The Christian community exploded with interpretation. Some called it proof, vindication of biblical accuracy, evidence that Genesis was literal history, documentation that the flood actually happened. Or confirmation that giants walked the earth. Others called it warning, prophetic fulfillment, signs of the end times, proof that judgment was coming again, evidence that corruption would return, confirmation that history repeats. But skeptics fought back. Geologists insisted the formation was natural, explained it as mud flow compression, erosion patterns, sedimentary coincidence. They dismissed the skeletal remains as hoax, called the DNA results contaminated, demanded independent verification. The debate raged across academic journals, scientific publications, religious forums, media platforms. Everyone had opinions. Few had facts. Fewer still had answers. The Turkish government sealed the site, declared it protected archaeological zone, restricted all access, cited preservation concerns, cultural heritage protection, scientific integrity. But the real reason was simpler: control the narrative, control the evidence, control the implications. UNESCO observers arrived. or documented the site conditions, noted the containment damage, the framework destruction, the scroll condition. They issued warnings, cautioned against tourism development, emphasized preservation requirements, recommended limited access. But they couldn't control what was already released. The images, the measurements, the DNA results, the translations, all public, all documented, all impossible to retract. The discovery's timing became the subject of intense analysis. May 1948. The same month, Israel became a nation. After 1900 years, after nearly 2 millennia of exile, the Jewish people returned, the nation reborn, the prophecy fulfilled. And in that same month, the Ark was confirmed, the dimensions verified, the location established, the evidence revealed. Coincidence, or divine timing, or prophetic fulfillment? Isaiah 66:8 asked the question, "Who has heard such a thing? Can a nation be born in a day?" Israel was born in a day, May 14, 1948. God declared independence, established sovereignty, became a nation, fulfilled prophecy, and the Ark discovery coincided. Same month, same year, same prophetic moment, as if God was marking the event, confirming the timeline, announcing the beginning of the end. Because Israel's restoration triggers the final countdown. Ezekiel 37 describes it. The valley of dry bones. Israel scattered, then regathered, then brought back to life. The nation restored. The people returned. The land reclaimed. Just, I will make them one nation in the land, on the mountains of Israel. It happened. In 1948, after 2,000 years, the prophecy fulfilled, the timeline activated, the end times clock started, and the Ark discovery marked it, testified to it, confirmed it, as if God was saying, pay attention, the signs are here, the warnings are real, the countdown has begun. But most people ignored it, dismissed it, explained it away, just like the people in Noah's time. And just like the crowds who mocked while he built, just like the generation that drowned while the door sealed. Jesus warned about this, Matthew 24:37, as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. What were the days of Noah like? Normal. People eating, drinking, marrying, living everyday lives, ignoring the warnings, dismissing the prophet, mocking the Ark, right up until the flood came. Oh, and they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. History repeating. Conditions matching, corruption spreading, genetic manipulation advancing, moral decay accelerating, violence increasing, exactly like the pre-flood world, and the signs are multiplying. Blood moons, celestial phenomena, Joel 2:31 described it. The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord comes. The blood moon tetrads appeared, 1949 to 1950, right after Israel's rebirth, 1967 to 1968, during the Six-Day War, 2014 to 2015, during increased Middle East conflict, every tetrad coinciding with major prophetic events. Coincidence? Or divine signaling? Or prophetic fulfillment? And now the UFO phenomena. The unexplained sightings, the government admissions, the military confirmations. Objects defying physics, craft demonstrating impossible capabilities, intelligence operating beyond human technology. Some call them extraterrestrial, others call them interdimensional, but what if they're neither? What if they're the same beings from Genesis 6, the sons of God, the fallen angels, the corruptors who created the Nephilim? Jesus said the end times would mirror Noah's days. Genesis 6 describes those days. The sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. Genetic corruption, forbidden unions, hybrid offspring, the Nephilim, the giants, the reason for the flood, and it's happening again. Genetic engineering, DNA manipulation, hybrid creation, CRISPR technology, gene editing, playing God, corrupting creation, exactly like before the flood. The scrolls warned about it. Return, future tense. Coming again, the corrupted bloodlines reappearing, the Nephilim walking the earth, the contamination spreading. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, after the flood, after the judgment, they returned, and they'll return again. The final return, the end times manifestation, the reason for the second judgment, not by water this time, by fire. 2 Peter 3:7. The present heavens and earth are reserved for fire, being kept for the day of judgment and destruction of the ungodly. Fire, like the fire that consumed the corrupted aboard the ark. Like the fire that preserved their remains, like the fire that's coming for the whole world. The ark discovery isn't just archaeology, it's prophecy, it's warning, it's countdown. It's God saying, this happened before, it's happening again, judgment is coming. Are you ready? Noah preached for 120 years, warned about coming judgment, built the ark, prepared for catastrophe. Most people ignored him, mocked him, dismissed him as crazy. Then the rain started, and the fountains burst open, the waters rose, and the door of the ark sealed. Genesis 7:16 states it clearly, and the Lord shut him in. God closed the door, not Noah, God. And once God closed it, no one else could open it. The opportunity ended. Grace period finished. Salvation window closed. People pounded on the ark, screamed for entry, begged for rescue. Too late. The door was sealed. Judgment had begun. Mercy had ended. The same thing is coming. Another judgment, another catastrophe. Another purification. But this time by fire. This time globally. This time final. And just like before, God is providing an ark, not wood and pitch, not a physical vessel, but a spiritual refuge, a place of safety, a means of salvation. Jesus Christ is the ark, John 14:6. I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus is the door, John 10:9. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved. The choice is simple. Enter the ark. Accept Jesus, receive salvation, or stay outside. Reject the offer, face judgment, but the door won't stay open forever. Just like in Noah's day, there's a limit, a deadline, a final moment, and when God shuts the door, no one can open it. The signs indicate the time is short, Israel restored, blood moons appearing, corruption spreading, technology advancing, genetic manipulation accelerating, UFO phenomena increasing, moral decay everywhere. As it was in the days of Noah, the ark has been found, the evidence revealed, the warning issued, the countdown visible. The question is simple. What will you do with it? Will you enter the ark? Will you accept